best reputation, don't have the best reputation speaking English, but I hope you can understand me, and if not, just raise your hand or just shout. I'll talk about content storyline editing, which is essentially about storytelling. A little bit for my background, because I think that's important to everything I'm telling you today. I'm working at a communications agency, and we're specialized on kind of content marketing, which is so-called these days. So we're producing from video to blog post to whatever and put it on the web. We have a very different client base, from high-profile publishing houses, because our city, Stuttgart in Germany, is quite famous for publishing houses and stuff, to mom-and-pop shops. Maybe not the smallest ones, but like family businesses, been long in the industry. And what we mostly do is not create sites that are built and released, but sites that are built with only filled with a base of information and then filled with content over time. So we're producing a lot of content and we want to put it online. And often it's not us doing it, but it's their editors, their employees doing it with small teams or with bigger teams. And we found out that not everything is working so well for the editors. Telling stories is, that's why I put the picture there, is something that's in the nature of people. We like to just tell a story, explain what we've done, explain where we went to, where we traveled to, whatever. And content creators are more or less the commercial form of that. They're thinking about ideas. How can we put a product out there onto the web? How can we show its features? How can we show its uses? What can we do to showcase it as a product or the company as a whole? So it's all about the content creators. And this is more or less American, like Shevin helped me with that. I hope this is the English version. So thank you, obviously, that was, it is, oh sorry, this is the thing today. And everybody's talking about it, but if you look at most of the Umbraco backend experience, you go in there, you create a page, you fill out a few fields, and then what? Developing a story inside of that is not really possible. You can't easily edit it afterwards. If you, for instance, have subnotes, it's a hassle with sorting them. You could resort to some editors, packages out there that could help you with building a better experience, but with the out of the box, it's not so much editor friendly for flexible content, putting a video here, putting some slides down there from, for instance, SlideShare. Adding a video next to a text or something is almost impossible today. It got much better with the Angular backend now, and I talked about that in the past. So you can make your custom property editors now, easily click here, click there, add content, pick something, which is cool, but still it's not only a lot of work, but it also, it clutters everything a bit. So if this is the thing everybody's talking about, great stories sell everything, we need to find a great way of giving people the ability to make these stories happen, to put them online. And in a way, in essence, storytelling is tying together single pieces of media to tell the story, and most of it's done outside of the CMS workflow. So we often have the situation, this is what I'm talking about today, we come to a client, they have an editorial team, and they ask us to build a site, plus come with a content strategy, what to do the next months and years. Well, maybe that's a bit ambitious with the years, but they mostly ask for that. 6 months is probably not the horizon where you can see or whatever. And they're asking for how will we fill in the content to the web? And I often realize if people are going like, how do we fill in the content, something is probably not going into the right direction, because filling in the content into the web means they don't care for the CMS, they do some content outside of the CMS and just put it in there, they fill it into fields. This is the experience most of them have with CMSs. So they're thinking about how do we fill it in, showcase it to us. And we tried every approach, from sub-data nodes to custom editors. We even did the Sir Trevor package. Maybe somebody of you knows where you can use blocks of content below each other and edit. And it's not working that well if people thinking just outside of the CMS and not with it. But that's often a problem because of the CMSs. They're like a hurdle. So there are a lot of challenges for content creators. And the most troublesome thing are obviously, don't know how I could find that, but I thought it was exactly illustrating the point. Web layouts, because it changed a lot in recent months and years. And originally, publishing to the web was like putting a few pieces together and sending it online. You had a few fields to fill out, a rich text editor, plugging in an image, save it, publish, done. But these days, you have to do a lot more. Like, we have so much rapid technical changes, nobody's knowing what's coming tomorrow. I mean, we can guess and we can make assumptions, but we really don't know. And this is a problem for web layout because you probably need to change something in the next month. And if somebody is inserting content into a rich text editor, you most likely won't be able to change anything after he's pressed the save button. The problem we often have is that people realize more and more that this whole content industry that is emerging or in some industries already there, it goes with a faster content turnover. You produce much more content than in the past because you need to bring it out there. I'm not talking about pure SEO stuff, but really relevant content. Still, people like to read more and more about it. Google likes it, people like it, so it's getting produced more and more. And the question is, how can we help the editors in times where the content turnover is so much faster? We have the problem is probably not the right word, the challenge of adaptive content. Kind of personalization light, I'd like to put it. Hope that makes sense for most of you. It's not really personalized content, but it's still adapting to situations. Niels was talking in his keynote about the variations coming in the future to Umbraco, where you can make variations of a page. This is kind of a way for adaptive content. So you're going like, for this device or from on that time, we have a bit of change in the content. If you're visiting it in the afternoon, you get a different content or something. It's more and more going in that direction or personalized to the people. So adaptive content is a challenge as well. Also, we're more and more embedding content and syndication. All types of external content is getting mashed up. It's no longer just the CMS where all the content is in, but you have whatever external resources coming in as well. So web editors and content creators have a lot of challenges. The content curation, on-site curation, is a big thing. Like, everything gets tagged now, but probably next week, next month, next year, tags are not sufficient anymore. We need more ways to curate this huge amount of content we have, like 1,000 articles on a topic. Tags won't be enough. We need more ways to, for instance, let them choose particular documents they have in their tree somewhere. With search, we've seen a lot of improvement there. We need just more ways, easy ways for editors to be able to curate content. And the thing is content reuse. I think we've heard that for 10 years, but it is getting more important because technical change requires more changes to the website. So we need a way to figure out a way how we can reuse content even more. The next thing will probably content mixing or remixing, where you combine adaptive content with reusing. So you remix content in a way like this audience gets content out of 3 blocks you have somewhere in your CMS, and the other audience under this via this URL is getting 3 other blocks mixed together and sent out. And so you need to find a way how to more modularize everything. The screen resolution is more or less infinite now. Pixel density factors, plenty. I don't know what's next. Or then the target device is like everything. So it's the impossible mission if you try to do this in a layout sense, like letting people click this goes here and this goes there and this goes beneath each other. It's going nowhere. The only thing that's going to help is we go with schema over markup. In a way, markup was intended to do that, but it's now col XS12 or something. So content management, as we have it today, is the last step in the process. These people are out there with their notebooks, with their tablets. They're filming, they're shooting pictures, they're writing text, they are creating some content. For instance, we have a client, it's a motorcycle publication. They are traveling around the world, shooting images, writing articles, and want to put it online. The last step to the process is putting it into the CMS. They have a completely agency-style workflow in their publishing house, more or less, collaborative, sitting together, working with cloud-based tools to produce the content. And the CMS is the last step in the process. So for them, it is okay that way because the usability of CMSs is often so and so, sometimes just awful, so they tend to avoid the CMS as long as they can. Technically, that would be all easy to solve, one might think, and that's with this amazing grid we now have. The grid to the rescue is the idea, and it is true. What we have now with the current beta is kind of a good tool for the web designer role, for instance. If you're a web designer, you will like it because you can do web design through the CMS in a way. You can click there and you can split things up and align a photo to the left and text to the right. Quite cool. It's a good tool for you because you're not editing a story most of the time if you're in a pure web designer role, but somebody has pointed you to a written story, a combined, a layouted thing, and tells you put it online. And you split it up, and you S to the left, this to the right, headline, text. So you're getting exact instructions what to do. Somebody thought about how to lay it out, and you're doing it onto the web, which is a good tool then. So it's a good tool for you then. For the webmaster role, this kind of guy was called a webmaster in the past. They are still at many companies we're in contact with for handling content updates from internal and external sources. They are like the all-around, all-in-one web guy, gal, whatever. They think it's quite cool. It allows you to create all the pages you need. Like they don't have to turn to the agency. It saves a lot of time, probably a bit of money as well. So they can drag and click, and it's what they want. But I'm referring to it a bit like this new school markup hell because they're misusing it often. For the content creators and editors, it is a cool tool as well. We did the prototype, to explain a bit better. We did the prototype for one of our clients, publishing house, bicycle magazine, motor bicycle magazine, and tried to apply the new grid to it because we're all for it, and I think, yeah, that's the way to go. We can now have widget type of click it together thing. And turned out the content creator, they not really hated it, but it took them so much time because they were trying to fiddle out how to be layouters in a way as well. And doing their best to align it left and right, and does it look better this way and that way, and how can we make it? So they love the control, like everybody loves control if you give it to him. I mean, it's a natural thing. Hey, we can do this now. We are allowed to do. But on the other hand, it sucked so much time. They were getting behind their schedule and had problems doing their work because in the prototype field. I mean, it was a controlled environment. But they had a bit of a problem to keeping up with the updates and doing like they should. So they liked it. They liked the power, but it wasn't as productive as it should have been. So there is good and bad. You might now ask, what is wrong with this guy? Because it seems like I'm disliking the grid or something, and that is... Don't look at me, Per, don't do that. Don't do that. I know. We wanted it for years, and it just has to be awesome, right? Because it must be awesome. There's no other. Well, it is. So please don't get me wrong in that point. I'm not disliking it. I'm not against it. It's just that we had this project, and it didn't go so well. We had a few problems, probably because we did it wrong in the implementation, and that's what I'd like to share a bit. It's nothing wrong with the grid, nothing if used wisely. So that's the point. There's everything wrong with it if you just provide the nuts and bolts. Because if you set up the grid, you can allow, that's what I'm going to show, have a look at the grid. If you're setting it up, this is what a grid consists of. It has a template. The template has one or more sections. Each section has collections of allowed layouts. A layout is a row of one or more areas, and a layout area has a list of allowed editors. An editor is the component you use to enter data, like a rich text editor, a headline, or picking media. I did that on purpose. It's overwhelming if you have it in this staccato style. In its current form, it is just a super cool CSS grid editor for Umbraco, where you put a text here, an image there, two texts next to each other. But this is exciting and horrifying at the same time, because all this content, it doesn't mean anything. It's just pieces. It's nuts and bolts. You don't understand what this image means. How does it relate to the text beneath it? Or is this list of things, is it actually a feature list for a product, or is it just a list of something? So this is how I feel about the grid. It is the all-in-one emotion. It is. I worked a while on finding how to illustrate it, because I find it difficult. It's exciting and horrifying at the same time. So one more time. Okay. If you build more complex content, it's easily getting cumbersome, because you add a headline, then you add a bit of text, you add an image below, split it up, right there, a text again, and you're starting to doing web layouts with your mouse again. And it's a manual process. It takes time for the content pages that are not super simple. It's sucking time. I didn't believe it in the beginning, but when I saw them using it, they were sitting there, click here, plus, picking. And then I realized the main problem is the editors are sitting in front of this interface, and they start trying to play with the content. And it's not so easy. You can't just freely move everything, drag around and stuff. You have to remove at times and select a new layout type because you want it completely rendered differently, this row. So they're deleting it, recreating it, adding the content again. And they're starting to have two windows opened, aligned next to each other with Word or OneNote on one side, or their in-house system they have for content in print, and like in copy and stuff, you know, where they're pulling it out. And they're copying over and over. It's a cut and paste orgy they are having there, picking images this and there, and it's taking so much time if the page is not super simple, like headline, image, text. And what we realized is it's also very error-prone if a team of editors tries to follow a style guide or something. If things need to be layouted in a certain way, like we have a key visual on top, and if you have a block of text below, please put another image that, below that text again to like lighten the content up a bit, yes? Or if we have a map someplace, we have the requirement next to the map, put a small text and explain what's on the map or something. They had these requirements. These were not technical requirements, but editorial requirements to make the content better. But the problem was, if you want a group of people to follow this guideline, you have to document every step. Like, you use this layout for that scenario of content. If you have a map explaining some local incident, some local event, use this. If you're explaining where a country is, use this template, because we want the map to be placed on the left and a text about the country on the right. We tried to solve that with many templates and rows and areas, it's getting awful if you have 20 of them. It's just not working. They're hovering over these gray boxes and searching high and low what to use. So they are making mistakes or going the shortcut. Yeah, shortcut. Like just put an image there and text on the right. Bam. Problem is, this also leads to this scenario where a major refactor, content-wise, a content refactor, not a code refactor, we're talking about content here, is impossible because everything is split up into columns, more or less, and it has no relation to each other. It's just a text here, a text there, an image here, a video there. You have no feeling of what it means, what its purpose is. It's just pieces. So if you give nuts and bolts to build a house, you're asking for trouble, because that's no longer the way we're building a house in a modern world. You need so much more. And the thing is, we're just piecing it together if we go this approach with the grid. It's like in print. We used to do it for ages. Someone writes a text, someone takes a picture, uploads it to the CMS, someone does a layout of this. Inside the grid editor, for instance, you can even set things like a font size, or wait a second, like font size, color, a container type, a background image. This is the job of a layouter, right? Not of an editor. You can disable that, but still somebody has to do it if you want some background color or some white image. Then someone prints the article, releases it to the web. Process done. Oh, wait a minute. This is what we're always accusing the printed media of. They are so stale. They're publishing it, and it's out there in this way, and it's unchangeable. But we're communicating digitally now, so you can just change it if you have new information about a story. Just add an image. Or maybe somebody, if you're doing a news site, somebody filmed the plane crashing. It's on YouTube. You most likely want to add that to your news because this link is there, this information is there. People want to see it. You have an article written about the airplane crash. It's horrible enough, but if you want to get noticed, you need a video. So you want to edit the article in the end, put it in there. But if you have this workflow, yeah, you get the picture. It is going to kill you because you have to go back to the beginning. Somebody decide, do we include that? Yes, no. Yes, we do include it. Okay, who can do it? We can place it down there, plus adding information about the author, giving credit, or explaining that we can't verify the source or something. Okay, you have all the pieces. Who's going to lay out this? I can just add it. Okay, do we have a style guide for that? It's just not working. And the video is the simplest of all these ideas. If we're talking about more substantial content, where people really doing journalists' work, they go in somewhere and find out new information. It's even harder. So it requires all these people, a layouter, some decision maker probably, but that's a workflow problem, not a CMS problem, to look into the content's topic, because you can't lay out something you don't understand. So you have somebody there, a layouter, a web designer, who has to take a look at what's written in the text and what the meaning of images is in relation to the text, so he can make an assumption how to lay out this in the best way for the reader. So it's a classical layout job you now have to fulfill. You can either have these people, or you can try to train your content editors, but it's not working, as we have seen at least. You need to repeat that for any variant. This whole process, going through the steps and releasing it. If you have a variation of a page, for instance, you're making kind of landing pages for products, interests, or something, you need to repeat that over and over again. Write content, select the images, the videos, think about a layout, let somebody do it. It costs a lot of money and time. And the question is that your workflow? If you're a news publishing agency, for instance, or a publishing house like a news site, sorry, a news site, something, this is not your workflow because you need to be fast to market. Whatever company you are today, time to market is everything. So we were out to find a different way by more truly modularizing content. This is actually a bit like truly modularizing content is a big statement. I don't think we really reached that point, but we aimed for that, for truly modularizing it. So we got into it and thinking it's not just a picture we're talking about, it's an infographic, for instance, which is technically, in Umbraco, it's just the same. It's an image in the media library, right? If it's an infographic or not, it doesn't make so much of a difference. You can do a different content type for it, true. That's one way to do it. But more or less, it's an image. But if you're using an infographic inside your content, you, for instance, want it to have a special title, which does not come from the media object. The editor has to write something specific to tailor it to the content. And it has a link to an interactive version somewhere. It has a custom Twitter share text because you want to engage with your readers. You want them to click a tweet button with a predefined text or something exactly tailored to this situation, to this context of the article. So if you combine that plus an embed this feature, specifically again for the interactive version that's probably hosted somewhere else, if you're doing that with the grid, while it's possible, it's horrible if you're doing it by pieces. So don't see its part was our idea, but see its purpose. Bind it together with blocks. Now what I'm going to show is the way we did it in the past. I will tell a bit later how we want to do it in the future, but that's the state we're in at the moment. There was no grid so far, so we did the Trevor editor for Umbraco, where you can use this interface to add blocks, like you press the plus sign and you add a block of text, you add an image, etc. You can hover over the elements and for instance, to drag them up and down or to lead them, or the third one is something which we developed newly. You can have different types of content, like something like a quote, a list, an order list, embedded media gallery. It was our first step to everything, like modularizing component in a more meaningful way. This isn't the best version, but I had to do the screenshot without Wi-Fi and on a local repo, so it's missing a few CSS styles. This is, for instance, something where you can pick a background color and a headline and other stuff. So it's custom blocks with custom fields. You can arrange them up and down, pick an image on the left, etc. Using the grid's power where usable is still a point. So, for instance, if we have content curation it's from a mockup, but this site is now live, but it wasn't back then when I made it. For instance, if you want people to fill out this collage of image, it's easy to do with the grid. Just provide a custom editor, provide the layouts, and you can allow them to select it. This is a good use for the grid, for instance, where you have this visual one-to-one representation. But if you want to relate content pieces to one another, it's just not the right thing to do. So we thought about, why not create something to weight content? And this is what we did. It's just a small piece here. It's a pie chart, more or less. Oh, wait a second here. And this button switches between different states. So you have a more filled one until the max. And now you can render the content adaptively to any device by classical responsive web design, for instance. How does it work? It's very simple. We're trying to base rendering decisions on smarter assumptions instead of just having an image or a text. So what we did is, for instance, if you have a storyline where you have a headline, an image, and text, a gallery, and text again, and a slideshare, very simple. You also have weights. You just go in there. Every piece of content has a default weight of 2. And if you click the pie chart, you can just click through it. Tick, 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 tick. It gets reset again. You can do it over and over. You set it to a higher weight, or you can set it to a lower weight. And after that, for instance, you get a simple desktop rendering like this with rules. For instance, a headline has to go through the whole page. A slideshare is not allowed to exceed a certain weight because of ratio and stuff. And the content gets aligned next to each other. You can do a tablet portrait version of that easily because of the weight. And you can do the diff stacking for mobile. But probably you should come up with a better idea. But the most important part is you can go all this only with weights. And if the client requests something like this, and we had this scenario, exactly this one, he was going to like, what about white screens? I was like, they are big desktop screens? No, I mean white screens, like really white screens, like 2.1 or something, smart TV and stuff. And we were like, okay, don't know. But it only took us 2 days to have a widescreen rendering of 150 pages. They were already created. But because of the weight, we could realign them easily. And that is the idea we're going to follow. So what's different to the grid? It's a simple linear flow of the story in the back office still. It starts with all these blocks, and you give them weight. You like emphasize some of them and some not. And it leads to blocks. If you do it in a search forever way, I will come back to the grid in a moment. These blocks are contained in pieces of information. They are not elements of content, they are pieces of information. And they have a meaning. So you can decide, for instance, the most easy example is if you have a headline, you can go like, whatever weight it is, the first headline goes over all of it. It is a wide, important message because it's the first headline. We want to label the article with it big on top, for instance. And you can tune and change the whole site over time because it's not markup that it's generated in the back office or something, but they're just giving weight on content on pieces of it. So you can change it easily. You can handle rapid content releases very well because you have almost no layout time. Most of these editors, they know very well what part of content is important to them. It's natural to them. They just, because they wrote the article, they have screened all the possible photos and selected the best ones for their article or however their process is. They know this image is more important than that. They just click the dial and go like more important, less important, more important, save and publish. The rendering of the whole site can be tuned and changed over time. So, oh, sorry. Yeah. So the question, oh, I'm sorry. Obviously, yeah, last minute changes are never good. So how can we apply this idea we had with Sir Trevor and put it into practice? How can we put it into practice now that there is the new grid? And we have decided at Mind Revolution that we want to follow the mainstream in this way and not further develop on Sir Trevor, but go with the grid. Because we're using the grid as well, as I've shown in one instance, for several solutions. So for now, with the current state, we can at least reduce the clutter and the noise for editors by only using a bare minimum of layouts in the grid. And the most important part, trying to bring schema to the grid editor, by using custom data types inside of the grid, instead of relying on text, rich text box plus image. Instead, go in and create an angular view, make a small data type, for instance, for a quote. It's already there, but just for I was trying to think of an example. What would be an easy example? Infographic. Custom title, infographic, link below. 3 fields, so easy. It takes 5 minutes at the most to whip that up. And if you use that later on inside of the grid, you have a much better editor experience with the current version of the grid already. So don't use the nuts and bolts, but build some component and provide that to the editors, and the grid is starting to come to life. The question about the future. from what I've heard, there will be some changes to the grid over time, evolving, which is just natural. But the idea should be, and that's what I'm more or less advocating, we should make the grid truly part of the core, much more to the core, like part of our core Umbraco editing experience. Like everything should be more or less inside of the grid, because it makes the editor more flexible and frees them from deciding which way to go. Shall we go with the grid? Sorry, the developers. Shall we go with the grid or shall we go with fields, for instance? But the ultimate goal should be not go for data types, but for the doc types in the grid. I think if we go that way, if we could create doc types and put them into the grid in a way, not like just putting it there for technical sake, but make it really usable. You could create blocks of information, logical units, and allow them to be used inside of the grid without having to develop a data type for every this and that instance, which is part of the great power that comes with Umbraco. You can just create blocks, you can just create doc types, have information saved and read back from. So the question is, what's on your mind? Because this is just my experience with a single big project and talking to all the content editors over a few weeks, developing a prototype and finding out it's not working too well, but we can solve it with things we apply to Sir Trevor, but we'd like to have solved it with the grid. So the idea is we need to help shape the future of the grid. This is by sharing our opinion on Twitter, sending it to the HQ or whatever. Because if we're not raising our voice and telling what we're doing with it and what we want from it, it probably will get implemented in a technical way because there is no practical feedback. So this is my main goal for today, and I hope I can have you on Twitter to discuss that. Thank you. Any questions? I've seen you. You kind of seem interested in the topic. It is. Yeah, it just more or less, you end up in the same situation. It's a bit better, but not, yeah, probably you could try with data types and it should help, yeah. Anyone else? Stefan. You had this approach of, oh, this is a product, and we can use inheritance to have a electronics product or a gardening product, which made it was quite easy. You had product SKU or something and a base description, plus for the electronics you had a compatibility chart or something. You could do that with inheritance. But if you're communicating some piece of content, a story that consists of unknown content pieces, it's impossible to find the right. You end up with these 10 fields of image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or tabs, where your main image, additional image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, optional, 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 optional. It's horrible. So the idea is the plus sign is essentially, you're absolutely right. We could have a plus sign in Umbraco without grid, plus add this doc type below. So we had subnodes in the past. You have probably, which one of you has used subnodes in the past? You just raise your hand. I mean, everybody feels guilty about that. It's okay. But it was the only solution, right? We did clever events, right? Document events where if the user created some type, it got added 3 subnodes already and stuff. But it wasn't exactly nice. And in a way, this is what I'm asking for with a good UI, not in a technical way, but from the idea. Yeah. So hope that makes it a bit clearer. We just didn't have the type, plus we had 2 small sites. Okay, honestly, it's just small sites, 20 pages, nothing special. So, but what we realized is if the editor is layouting in the back office and has everything perfectly splitted, it gets rendered differently on tablet portrait and on smartphone. So what's the idea of it? What do they gain? They see the desktop layout, and then we need to resort to stacking the diffs and trying to replace values to render responsive. So if there is not a one-to-one relation between the layout you're creating and the output you're creating, it's a vehicle as well. So it's good usable without any markup. But a bit of a problem, at least in our experience, was that if we tried to do a clever layout out of that, we had to build an in-memory tree or something of all this to move them around and to re-layout them. Because if you're just iterating over it and in these loops, you don't have information about the past and the parent so much, and you can't change it so easily. So you're a bit stuck in this, and you need to reflow everything. So yeah, we should probably go into more detail later. But I think it solves a lot of problems, the grid. I'm happy it's there. We desperately needed that. And if we use it widely, it should work pretty well. So anyone else? Father, if they realize there is this Coke wheel, you're in deep shit. It's just because they don't realize what they can do in there. They're adding background colors and they don't know how to remove, and they send you emails, accusing you of bad things. That is not my fault. There is some color value in there. So this is the first part. The second part is fun aside. The best thing is reduce the possibilities and don't give them the impressions that this is a visual layout. Don't tell them you can put it on the left or on the right. Give them 3 to 4 kind of layouts of templates where they can choose from, like half and half or 1/3 and 2/3 and stuff, and limit it to that. And this way you can make your own layout logic later on that just picks this categorization up a bit. I think that's the best solution for today. If you're going with 7.2 in production, that's the way to do it. Sorry. While we are, for instance, retiring CURATION over time, it is a good tool, and I like it a lot. But my original intention to bringing it to Umbraco was to CURATION as the CURATION editor in JavaScript. It's just JavaScript. It's running with backends for Node, Ruby, whatever. So my idea was probably there will come up a community providing blocks for everything, like for YouTube videos plus for Vimeo videos, for everything, for slide shares, for discuss, moderation, whatever. It didn't work out too well, in my opinion. I think they did it for a big site, for a big client, and they have lost more or less interest in the editor. That's my personal opinion. Which isn't a bad thing. It's in a good state. It can do what you want from it, and it's extensible. But there is not a huge, like a repository of blocks you can plug in. And that was my main idea with bringing it to Umbraco originally, to like open us up to other CMSs, people building content blocks there, so we could just use them. We should just download them. We could have been just cloning them and using it with our backend, because the nice change with version 7 that we have the JSON stored in the backend and dynamics and stuff. But turns out, I think this project is stable and it's serving us well, but it's not going with us into the future. So for now, I think the best part for all of us would be to like concentrate on one project, for instance, the grid, or Stefan, sorry, whatever we come up with this evening. I mean, you come up this evening. Oh, say, what are you going to? So, like, to put all the energy into one thing and move forward with that. So you will have, it is a breaking change. Forget about these old sites. We even have more or less trouble converting CURATION sites to the grid, like having custom converters written, but still it's not a one-to-one mapping, so it's working-ish, whatever. So yeah, we have to fiddle around with the conversion all the time. So it is a breaking change. Concentrate on tomorrow and prepare for what there is coming. So for now, it is the grid as we have it. If you're using custom data types, you can build clever blocks. You can schema it. You can make logical content units, which is a good thing. And you can move them on because they will work in the future as well, because you have all the information about a content. You could convert them easily. You could just read them out and convert them to different JSON and reuse them. But if you're still stuck with rich text editing, yeah, you're doomed. So yeah, let's start with you, which is the news article and consisting of the URL, like where you put it in the tree, and below it there could be sub-data nodes in a way. You could add them and mix them in. Yeah, exactly. This would be like the best way, essentially. If we could just bring the old concept of sub-data nodes in a modern UX, it would solve everything. Written such a thing for ourselves for several projects. We used it. It just stopped. It hooked him into some tree event and stopped rendering the subnodes, so you couldn't see them. And if you clicked on it, you got presented with a list of them to select from there. Like, you want to edit this piece of subnode, click the pen symbol, and it was loading the subnode inside of that. It was a solution, technically. Yeah, it served us well for a few years, but it's not perfect. We need to come up with something different. And I was thinking it could be the grid, but essentially you're right. I'm not after the grid. But one thing is interesting. If we would use the grid for that, we had the possibility of combining the information with a bit of layout, like next to each other, close to each other or something. Whereas if we just go the linear, so Trevor style, block by block by block by block, we don't have that information. We should probably just make a matrix and check off what's better. Yeah. You have a question as well? For now. That is the problem. So that's why we need to step in early, educate them on don't misuse the grid as a data store, kind of. And that is hard because they don't understand. And it's not their job to understand, honestly. I mean, it's probably their job to listen to us if we tell them, but it's not their job to think inside of that technically. With this more or less proposal light to the approach, this is what I was trying to suggest. If we could use doc types in the grid, we could at least reduce the problems, because we could tell them create under this doc type, parent doc type, create something below there, name it pricing or price matrix, create the fields there, and then add it to the grid. So at least it would have been like in a schema or something. But we can't just transfer it just render it directly there with all the labels and fields. This is not going to work. We need to find a UX that's working better. Like, yeah, it's just going to be ugly if we have the grid and rendered all these doc types in there. This is, yeah. So, Stefan, you're already hacking away, right? No pressure. All right. Anyone else? Okay. So thank you, especially for the discussion.